Hi, it's Verity and welcome to my YouTube channel Pretty Little Button, where I make paper crafting tutorials for the everyday crafter. So Catherine Pooler has announced her new release, Celebrate Spring, and I got to play with one of the bundles early on. She's announced the Easter bundle yesterday, and today she's now gone and shown you the magnificent Mum bundle. This is a beautiful collection of supplies, including this beautiful background red rubber stamp called Coming Up Roses. It's got a beautiful rose pattern in there with other foliage, flowers and leaves in there. So this is really great for an outline design that you can colour in, whether you emboss that, you colour in with your Copics, you watercolour this in. It's up for all sorts of different types of colouring. In addition, there's a beautiful sentiment stamp. So this is called the Mother and Daughter's Sentiment Stamp Set. It's got lovely script sentiments in there, as well as a sort of very clean serif font as well. So you've got the word mother or mum, and you can add an apostrophe S onto that. There's also daughter, friend, you are loved, and then there's a few scripts with some of the actual sentiments, sort of serif font sentiments as well. And you can pair these with the serif font sentiments, for example, mum, in a world full of you, I'm so glad you're mine. Or I love being your friend, I love being your daughter. There's also the word happy and day, so you can make Happy Mother's Day or Happy Mum Day. So this is a great set for making some Mother's Day cards, but also some daughter and friend cards as well. In addition, there is another floral stamp set, and this is called Fresh Picked Florals. So these have some really sort of artistic, sketchy kind of florals in there, with some solid stamps and some outline stamps. And the solid stamps do go with some of the flowers, and there is going to be a layout of how you use those stamps to layer them. But they won't layer perfectly. They're giving sort of an artistic, sketchy appearance, so they don't line up perfectly. You get a sketchy, arty look. And they're really, really nice. Obviously those bold ones can go on different flowers, but there is a way you can use them. In addition, this set also comes with the dies as well, so you can die cut these out. Except from the stems, those you would just stamp directly onto the card. So there is a small word die, it's called Just Mum Die. And this I will use later on in the card to show you some really quick, easy cards with them. There is a sequin mix called Helsinki Sequin Mix, and this has a selection of sort of pinks, yellows, sort of greeny colours in them with a few yellow flowers as well. Variety of different sizes, real pastel collection, really bright and spring, really goes well for spring cards. Also for Mother's Day cards, because you use those beautiful pastel colours often with Mother's Day cards. But make sure you keep an eye out on my channel, because I'm going to show you a couple of Mother's Day cards that don't use pastel colours at all. There is also a paper pack called Happy Mama Paper Pack, and I'm going to flip through these as well for you so you can see what the different types of papers are in there. Remember, with Catherine Pooler paper packs, it does tell you on the front the colour of ink pads from Catherine Pooler that go really, really well with the paper pack. So for this paper pack, it goes great with Be Mine, Coral Koana, Samba, Tiara, In the Park, Minted, Cumberbund, Twilight Inks, and also the Helsinki Sequin Mix also pairs really, really well with the pattern paper. So you've got this beautiful sort of rose background that sort of mimics a bit of the Coming Up Roses background, but there is another one later on that mimics it even more. Then got this beautiful yellow dotty background, which is the Tiara colour in the ink pads. You've then got a beautiful sort of pink check. This is more the Be Mine ink pads that it goes really, really well with. You've then got a lovely sort of striped rainbow pattern, and this kind of uses a selection of all those ink colours on the front in that, and I do use that in another card. Then we have this beautiful leaf background, which is more the In the Park collection colour. You've got a beautiful dotty background that uses all of those colours, and then you've got this other rose background which really mimics that Coming Up Roses background stamp. And then you've got another plaid kind of style background as well, which uses a selection of those colours. So all of these colours look great together. They create really beautiful sort of spring cards and Mother's Day cards as well. Now I'm going to show you a really quick card using the paper pack and the dies just to create some fun mum cards. Obviously I will show you some more inspiration on my blog coming up in the next few days, because this is a pre-release week for Catherine Pooler's collection. So I have trimmed down the yellow Tiara dotty background paper, and I've trimmed this so it's about 4 inches by 5¼ inches. And I foam mounted that onto a card base just to give it a bit of interest with dimension. For the sentiment, I'm using the Just Mum die, and I have die cut this 3 times. And I'm going to layer this up with a liquid adhesive because I want to create some dimension and interest. Now you can just use a single layer if you prefer, But I do find when you layer these up, it adds a little bit more interest into your card. It pops the sentiment out of that background a bit. I'm using liquid adhesive because this allows me to line it up, gives me a bit of wiggle room if they're not quite perfect, and I can move it about so that they align lovely. Now, just to step up the actual word die, what I'm going to do is I'm going to emboss the lower half of the word. So I'm just pressing the word down into my embossing ink pad, just covering about half of the lower part of the mum die. Then I'm covering this with some Wow embossing powder. This is the Superfine Metallic Gold Rich embossing powder. And then I'm heat setting this. Now I'm doing this several times. I do repeat the embossing. I cover it with some more embossing ink, add some more embossing powder, and I do this about 3 times. I do this about 3 times because I like to get a really smooth layer of embossing. You can use 1 layer. Obviously I'm using very super fine, so when you do use that with an embossing ink on a large surface of this, you may not get a completely smooth surface. If you use a regular one, you'd get more of a smooth surface. And then once I've done that, what I like to do is I like to use my creative detailer from Couture Creations just to remove any flecks of embossing powder above that line that just don't look quite right. Now for the sentiment, you may have seen I'd originally heat embossed a sentiment onto black card and then I decided it didn't look quite right. So I heat embossed it again onto white card, and this is from the Mothers and Daughters stamp set, and I've used the sentiment that says, "I'm so glad you are mine." Now it was all as one sentiment with 2 lines of text above each other. But what I did was I just stamped it and then I cut it in half because I just wanted to add a little bit of variation and a little bit of gap between those sentiments, just to add a bit more interest to the design of the card. And I just staggered them off to one side. Now I could have kept them as one whole sentiment, but I did switch it up a little bit. To finish the card off, I then added some sequins from the Helsinki Sequin pack. And I just went with the pink sequins in there that comes in 2 different sizes. It comes in the larger size and the small sequins. And I just thought this pink really popped off of that yellow background. It looked really nice, gave a bit of contrast, and it gave it a little bit more interest. I have created another card, which over on my blog, if you're interested in seeing that. It's another really quick, easy card using the pattern paper and the mum die to create a fun mum card. You'll find all the details of the products used in today's video in the description box below. These will be available to buy on the 9th of March. If you're a Stamp Nation member, you can get access early and order on the 8th of March. If you're new to my channel, why not think about subscribing and hit that bell icon to be notified when my next video is up. Until next time, happy crafting!